Good Monday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for July the 10th. Today we are reading together in Judges chapter 19, which I just getting on out there. These next three chapters, Judges 19, 20, and 21, are maybe the worst three-chapter stretch in the entirety of Scripture. It is just absolutely horrific, everything that takes place here within these chapters. And sorry to begin a week of daily Bible reading in these texts, but I mean, just is what it is. Thankfully, Ruth is on the way. We'll be reading Ruth on Thursday and Friday, which is a beautiful story, and it really helps to balance out a lot of the unfortunate stories we've been reading here within the Judges. But it is all illustrative or illustrative of the reality of what life looks like whenever everyone does what is right in his own eyes, whenever everybody does what seems right to him, and whenever God is completely ignored. So with that in mind, let's read what we have going on here in Judges chapter 19. I encourage you, as we're thinking about these texts, to as a friend of mine said in his own study of this text, that each of these characters are representative of that type of person during this time. So we're going to have here a Levite. He's representative of the people of the Levites at this time. We have a concubine. She's representative of the women at this time. We have city citizens. They are representative of the city citizens of this time. So again, we read this text, we recognize that it is just an ugly period in the history of Israel. And it all gets back to, again, the reality that whenever you don't show faithfulness to God, whenever loyalty to the covenant is not something that you care about, well, the depths of depravity, well, they're almost bottomless. So let's read together here in Judges 19 in verse number 1. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, a Levite staying in a remote part of the hill country of Ephraim acquired a woman from Bethlehem in Judah as his concubine, basically a second-class wife. She has full wife status. She is a true wife, but any children that would come from this marriage don't have inheritance from their father. So real wife, but not all the full privileges of a wife. Verse number 2, but she was unfaithful to him, or a different rendering says she was angry with him and left him for her father's house in Bethlehem in Judah. She was there for 4 months. Then her husband got up and followed her to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had his servant with him and a pair of donkeys. So she brought him to her father's house. And when the girl's father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, detained him, and he stayed with him for 3 days. They ate, drank, and spent the nights there. On the 4th day, they got up early in the morning and prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, have something to eat to keep up your strength, and then you can go. So they sat down, and the two of them ate and drank together. Then the girl's father said to the man, please agree to stay overnight and enjoy yourself. The man got up to go, but his father-in-law persuaded him. So he stayed and spent the night there. Again, he got up early in the morning on the 5th day to leave, but the girl's father said to him, please keep up your strength. So they waited until afternoon, and the two of them ate. The man got up to go with his concubine and his servant when his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, look, night is coming. Please spend the night. See, the day is almost over. Spend the night here. Enjoy yourself. And then you can get up early tomorrow for your journey and go home. But the man was unwilling to spend the night. He wasn't going to do this song and dance again. So he got up, departed, and arrived opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. The man had his 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine with him. When they were near Jebus and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, please, why not let us stop at this Jebusite city and spend the night here? But his master replied to him, we will not stop at a foreign city where there are no Israelites. Let's move on to Gibeah. Come on, he said, let's try to reach one of these places and spend the night in Gibeah or Ramah. So they continued on their journey, and the sun set as they were nearing Gibeah in Benjamin. They stopped to go in and spend the night in Gibeah. The Levite went in and sat in the city square, but no one took them into their home to spend the night. In the evening, an old man came in from his work in the field, He was from the hill country of Ephraim, so same place as his Levites, but he was residing in Gibeah, where the people were Benjaminites. When he looked up and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, "Where are you going? And where do you come from?" He answered, "We're traveling from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote hill country of Ephraim, where I am from. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I'm going to the house of Yahweh," or again, translation issues. It could simply read "to my house," which probably makes more sense to me. He's going back to his house. "No one has taken me into his home," back in the text. "And although there's straw and feed for the donkeys, and I have bread and wine for me, my concubine, and the servant with us, there is nothing we lack." So basically, he is saying that we're not going to be a burden to anyone. We simply need a place to lay down. Verse 20 says, "Welcome," said the old man. "I'll take care of everything you need. Only don't spend the night in the square." So he brought him to his house and fed the donkeys. Then they washed their feet, ate, and drank. While they were enjoying themselves, all of a sudden, wicked men of the city surrounded the house and beat on the door. They said to the old man, who was the owner of the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." The owner of the house went out and said to them, "Please don't do this evil, my brothers. After all, this man is coming to my house. Don't commit this horrible outrage. Here, let me bring my virgin daughter and the man's concubine, abuse them, and do whatever you want to them. But don't commit this outrageous thing against this man." But the men would not listen to him. So the man seized his concubine and took her outside to them. They raped her and abused her all night until morning. At daybreak, they let her go. Early that morning, the woman made her way back, and it was getting light. And as it was getting light, she collapsed at the doorway of the man's house where her master was. When her master got up in the morning, opened the doors of the house, and went out to leave out on his journey, there was the woman, his concubine, collapsed near the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold. "Get up," he told her. "Let's go." But there was no response. So the man put her on his donkey and set out for home. When he entered his house, he picked up a knife, took hold of his concubine, and cut her into 12 pieces, limb by limb. Then he sent her throughout the territory of Israel. Everyone who saw it said, "Nothing like this has ever happened or has been seen since the day the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt until now. Think it over, discuss it, and speak up." And that is Deuteronomy chapter 19. Again, just a very ugly scene unfolds here in Judges chapter 19. I appreciate the NET Bible. Actually, I wonder if I have that on here. I might actually. The NET Bible, I'll see if I do or not. Oh, yeah, here we go. All right, the NET Bible actually has a very interesting heading for this particular chapter, and it might ring a bell for you, as it says here in Genesis chapter 19, Sodom and Gomorrah revisited. Sodom and Gomorrah revisited. Also note here that the NET does say in verse number 2 that she got angry with him. It gives you a little bit of note here. It tells you why. There's alternate rendering of "was unfaithful to him," but many have understood the Hebrew verb, that word, as being from another word, but it may be derived from the root meaning to be angry, to hate, which is attested in another language. Why would that seem to be a good possible rendering of this text as opposed to "was unfaithful to him"? Well, it could be because, number one, she's a concubine, and concubines were basically second-class wives. They were wives, don't get me wrong, they were wives, but they were not the full status of a wife. So it could be that she was just tired of being treated in that way. She was tired of being treated as a second-class wife. And the fact that also that the husband got up and followed her to speak kindly to her, this looks like a man who was not being a good husband and had to go kiss and make up with his wife to try to get her back to his home. Same thing is true, that's the case. Now, what is strange though is the reaction of the father-in-law, her dad. Once the Levite, who is already not painted in a great picture, and we've already seen Levites from the hill country of Ephraim in chapter 17 and 18 not be great guys. So with all this, we are putting together the picture of man. Something just does not seem very good in this moment. There's something that just seems off in this story that does not seem positive at all. And as we continue on, he goes and goes to his father-in-law's house to try to get his wife back. The father-in-law acts, I don't know, just kind of funny in the fact that he's so welcoming, and he shows just over the top hospitality to this man. Tells him to stay and feeds him and gives him some of the drink, a place to kick back and relax, and does this for 5 days until finally the Levite's like, hey, we've had enough. We've been here long enough. It's time for us to go home, which that's understandable. We've probably all visited family, and there just comes a point when it's time to go home. It's time to go back to our place. Our welcome has been worn out. And maybe somebody just wants to get back to their own house. So maybe that's what's going on with the Levite here. Here's the issue, though, in verse number 10. The issue is that he wants to leave whenever it's already starting to get dark. He's wanting to leave at night, which, reading the Bible story, good things don't happen at night. It's at night whenever bad things happen. So they depart, and they are coming towards Jebus, which is an older name for Jerusalem. The servant of the Levite says, hey, why don't we stop in here to go ahead and settle down for the night? And the Levite blows him off. He's like, why would we stay in this Jebusite city where these pagans are? There's no way we're gonna have an enjoyable time in this pagan place. They're not going to treat us well. So let's go ahead and go to Gibeah or Ramah, where our own countrymen are. And again, Gibeah is actually ends up being the hometown of King Saul. So they make their way to Gibeah, and the text tells us that they go into the town square and they wait for someone to take them in. Now, it's at this point especially that the echoes from Sodom and Gomorrah really ought to start to show up on the page for us. City squares, needing a place to stay, showing hospitality. They're waiting. Nobody invites them in. This old man comes in from the field, and he says, hey, what's going on with y'all? And they said, we're traveling. We have everything that we need. We're not going to be a burden. We simply need a place to stay for the night. And the man says, no big deal. Come on, I'll take care of you. I'll put you up, and everything will be fine. Again, this one man shows great hospitality. But which should remind us of Lot. But it is those in the city that, as they're in the house, as they're enjoying their evening together, the wicked men of the city, the worthless men in the city, they surround the house just like Sodom and Gomorrah, and they began to beat on the door, and they want to have the visitor in the town, brought out to them so that they can have sex with him. This is straight up Sodom and Gomorrah. Just pick it off of Genesis 19 and lay it on the page right here, and it is the same story. Instead, or except for the fact that this man, actually in the same way, we see they were trying to be where they try to don't take these guys, don't take these guests, but they try to work out a deal to where they can take others instead. This man, like Lot, says, well, here, take my virgin daughter, and here also take this man's concubine. And we're thinking, why would they do that? And certainly it is a despicable thing for them to treat these women in this way. But you got to remember the setting that the Bible story is taking place in, not the setting that the Bible wants to put forth, not the Bible's value of women and God's value of women, but the culture's value of women is they weren't worth much, which is just horrible. It's despicable. But again, remember the setting of Israel itself, not just the culture as a whole, but even Israel itself. No one did what was right in God's way. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So here they are, willing to trade these women in order to have some peace. But eventually they don't listen to him. So the man just takes it upon himself. And then this is the Levite. He takes his concubine and just throws her out to him. Here we have a Levite offering a sacrifice, but not the type of sacrifice that he should have been offering. Instead, he's offering a human sacrifice here. Again, despicable, horrible, abominable in every way. This is absolutely horrendous behavior on the part of this Levite. And maybe we're sitting here thinking, again, if we're thinking about the Sodom and Gomorrah echoes, that, God steps into the story and brings justice. Well, we don't see that here. We don't see that at all, unfortunately. For these men take the woman, they abuse her, they rape her, all until morning. And you can just imagine the just awful condition she would be in. She's trying to make her way back to the house. She doesn't even have the strength, the health to make it to the house. She's found outside the door, reaching out for the doorway. But this man, this Levite, just showing how despicable and heinous he is, gets up in the morning like it's nothing, opens the door, gets up to leave, and here's his concubine. He doesn't bend down to care for her. He doesn't try to give her aid. He just says, hey, get up and let's go. But there's no response. Verse 28 might be the saddest single verse in the entire chapter. Just the callousness of this man to speak in the way that he does to this woman. Get up, let's go. But there's no response. And there's also no compassion. There's absolutely zero compassion that this man shows for this woman. For his wife. Again, a concubine, yes, but again, his wife. He shows no compassion for her. I wonder, was she alive at this point? Was she still alive? Did he have the opportunity to show compassion, to give her aid in order to bring healing to her? Maybe she was. Maybe she was still alive and just unresponsive. Maybe she was dead already. I don't know. But he takes her, puts her on the donkey. Whenever he gets back to the house, he takes a blade to her and cuts her up and sends her all over Israel. You want to talk about, we've talked recently about masculinity and how good traditional values of masculinity are painted as toxic. No, this right here, this is toxic masculinity. This is the failure of men to defend women and to treat them like the image bearers that they are. What an absolute failure here all around. What a failure on the part of the old man in offering up his daughter. What a failure on the part of this Levite to give his concubine. The failure of the men of the city to act in such a depraved way. There is zero difference in Judges chapter 19 between Israelites and pagans. And what's so ironic is that, remember, the Levite said, well, we can't stop in Jebus because that's a pagan city. That's a city belonging to Canaanites. That won't go well. I wonder how much better it would have been to go there instead of be here in Gibeah. Now, at the end of the text, it seems as if the Levite is trying to stir up a cause for himself. But whose honor is he really defending? Is he trying to defend the honor of his concubine who's dead now? Or is he trying to defend his own honor? I think chapter 20 is going to give us, Judges chapter 20 is going to give us the real answer to that question. But again, we just look at this text, it's awful. There's no sugarcoating it. There is absolutely zero redeeming factor in this story as far as I can tell. Here in Judges chapter 19, there is not a single thing here that goes well. And apart from the translation variant in verse number 18, Yahweh is mentioned not one bit. And how sad that is. Again, going back to chapter 17 and verse number 6, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did whatever seemed right to him. What seemed right to them? Well, what seemed right to them was offer up daughters and concubines for abuse. What was good to them was ignoring the well-being of those they supposedly loved and cared for. What it looked like for them was abusing others to the point of death. And how sad it is. And yet, such is, again, simply the simple reality of what happens whenever God is not honored, whenever God's values are not upheld, whenever people don't seek to show loyalty to the God with whom they have a covenant. And how much worse is that this is a Levite. This is one who is supposed to be of the priestly family, behaving in this manner. How sad and really just despicable it is. Yet the story is going to continue tomorrow as we're reading through Judges chapter 20. I hope that you'll join me for that reading tomorrow. If you have any further questions or comments about this text, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below as well. I appreciate you reading along with me in this tough text today. Again, please just hold in there. I know today was rough. I know that tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be rough, but Thursday and Friday are coming, and that's going to be Ruth, and that's going to be a much better read. So I hope that you will tune in for that read on Thursday and Friday. But let's make it through. Let's make it through to those days by finishing up here in the book of the Judges. Again, thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday, everyone. Take care. God bless you in all that you do, and we'll see you tomorrow.